Hello, everybody. It's Stephen and Walter here for another episode of So Chatty. It's episode, I don't know what number it is. I've lost track of that. It's October the 17th, 2025. So we're 1 week away from the Idiot Quilter Retreat, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Not in the middle too, but in a minute. I was trying to figure out why he was doing this little thing with his eyeballs and going back and forth. He does this all the time. It disturbs me. Just want you to, and he likes that
because you keep making mistakes.
I don't make mistakes. You make me make mistakes that I don't make. Yeah, that's how it works. Anyways, what have you been working on this week before I show what I'm working on?
Well, nothing right now because I finished that shirt I made.
Yes, and we premiered the shirt on Stephen and Walter Live last Sunday. So if you missed that, go back, watch. Why'd you miss it? And you'll see my latest shirt. But you're working on a new shirt, aren't you?
Not at the moment.
Oh,
no.
I thought you were making one for yourself.
Yeah, I will be, but right now I haven't got it cut out, and I was kind of trying to focus on cleaning up my room, but I got sidetracked again. So
he got the boards he wants to put his fabric on. Comic book board was not good enough for him.
No, what happens is the one my bookshelves that I keep fabric in is really deep, and so the comic book boards aren't big enough for organizing it. So I bought some other boards that were bigger.
He wants them to come right up flush to the edge, which...
Well, no, actually, the ones that I bought right now are bigger than that because it goes into that other bookshelf that I have on the other side of the room that used to be my dad's, right? Mm-hmm. And they're like 15 inches deep.
Okay, well, whatever. It's like when he picks out parking spots. He never takes the first one or the
picky.
10th one.
I want to use maximum use of my space.
Uh-huh. You pass me my water, please. I'm getting a frog in my throat.
And you always have a frog in your throat.
Yeah, well, it might be I have an allergic reaction to you.
Probably.
Yeah. Anyways, put that up there. So, what have I been working on? Well, I finally got around to quilting this Quilt of Valor. I've had the top done for months, and it's been sitting out in the Lucy room, and now I had incentive because we're going to a Quilt of Valor Sew Day on November the 8th, so I thought, well, I better get this done because I want to donate it at the time, and I think it turned out pretty good, and Lucy was very, very cooperative. We had no issues, no words between the two of us. She didn't even break a thread, which was amazing. So that's done and out of my way. I'll talk more about in little details come next Tuesday on my Idiot Quilter episode. And what else? Yeah, so, I've been working on this. Well, it's turned out to be a dining set or whatever you want to call it. I've got table runner. The table runner top is done. I've already shown that. I haven't got it quilted yet. I was going to put it on the embroidery machine and try to do block by block, but I've decided against that. Then I needed more fabric for the backing, and I couldn't get any wide back that I really liked, but I think I've got something that will work. So I've got to get it on Lucy, and then I'll quilt it and bind it. It'll be done, which is a good thing. These are the matching placemats to go with it. They're completely done. So now what I'm working on is matching napkins that have a little embroidery design in two of the corners diagonally across from each other. And I just finished one of those, but I'm not going to show it to you yet until I get all of them done. And I had to get out my serger, and I haven't used my serger in quite a while, so I had to thread it, and I do have an air threader. And yeah, it's supposed to make your life easier. I guess not that much easier. But anyways, I got it going okay. First time I threaded it, something was going nuts. I think I got a thread wrapped around some place where it shouldn't have been. And I tried to fix it without unthreading it again, but no. So I just unthreaded it and rethreaded it all, and it's working fine and dandy now. I should use it more often, but I don't have a lot of uses for serger, except when I make napkins for the edge. Rolled hem kind of a thing, as they call it. So anyways, yeah, that's what I have been up to. So announcements, Sewing with Stephen, Wednesdays as usual, and in the show notes. And the fall retreat update, we now have 80 people signed up. So I do have a few more spots left, which means if you've been really sitting on the fence and waiting to the last minute, well, I was going to close registration this coming Monday. I may leave it open for a couple of more days till about the middle of next week, just for any of you last minute people that would like to be part of that. Reminder to those of you that are already signed up, and I sent out a reminder, I need, if you want to be part of the show and share slideshow, which is always very popular during the retreat, then you need to send me one picture in JPEG format and just include your first and last name. No description, nothing. Don't waste your time writing any big blurb about it, because that blurb will never be seen by anybody because I'm not including it in the slide. Because there's going to be quite a few pictures. I don't want the slideshow to run 3 hours long, and I would have to make the transition from one slide to another a lot longer so people could read what's on there. Or I could read it to you, but then why? You don't need to hear my voice during that. You hear it enough during the week. So yeah, so I need that by midnight your time, Monday, this coming Monday, which is October the 20th. October the 20th. Okay, so I think that's all I need to tell you there. Well, today's topic is a little bit different. And, for those of you who think that So Chatty is all about quilting and that's all we're going to talk about, yes, what we talk about is related to quilting, but sometimes it's a little out there a little bit more. And this week's topic is a little out there as well. And the reason I got this idea is because I listen to podcasts when I walk in the morning. And this was a podcast I had never heard before. And their topic was about, where does joy come from? And they were talking about a lot of interesting things. Now, the two guys that run this podcast, I think, are life coaches. They might be therapists of some sort, I don't know. But, and I put the life coaches in quotation marks because I really don't believe in life coaches at all. I think that's just a way to suck people in to get money. But they were talking about, our perception of what brings us happiness, basically, what brings us joy. We know that what's her name that did the how to clean out your stuff and reorganize your stuff.
Mary Kondo or
yeah,
something.
Whatever. She has someone in the show notes send me an explanation of what her name was. I don't care. Just saying. Anyway, her theory was, if it doesn't bring you joy, throw it out. And I know there's probably some people out there that feel that way about their spouses. But, well, you don't bring me joy anymore. Bye-bye. But, yeah. Anyways, not necessarily talking about us. Crickets. Okay, moving on. But the point of view these guys were making is that joy is an internal thing. A lot of times people go out and they buy things to bring them joy. Like material items, like you've always wanted that new sewing machine out there that does everything that you'll never use all those things for, but you want it, you think you're going to be really happy. Well, we're happy for the first day with it, and then after that, we're seeking joy from other sources. Or, let's go on a holiday, let's go on a vacation, that'll bring me joy. Well, what their theory is yes, those bring you joy, but it's more of a temporary joy. Joy, they say, comes from within, and we all have joy, but we forget to look at the things that bring us joy. And they use some simple examples like going for a walk and seeing a bunny. That brings me joy. I always like to see the bunnies. Talking to people, meeting with friends, That brings you joy. And they were also saying these things do not necessarily have to cost you a lot of money, like going on an elaborate trip. These are free things you already have in you. And they went as far as to recommend that you write down, and I think some people call this a gratitude journal too. I think it's very similar, where you make a list of the things that bring you joy in your life. Like you really like spaghetti bolognese, brings you joy. Um, you know, the smell of clean sheets when you've redone your bed. Okay. Little things like that is what they're talking about. So I got thinking about this, and they did say certain crafts and hobbies that you do possibly bring you joy. And we hear quilters always talking about their happy place, their sewing room. It's their happy place. And they have the best time with themselves when they're sewing or doing a quilt or something like that. So I wanted to see what is out there about that. What kind of research is there about quilting? Does quilting truly bring us joy? So I found some interesting things, and we're going to pull them apart one at a time here. I found 2 articles thanks to AI on Google, and we're going to go through these. Walter hasn't seen these yet. I have, so we'll get his input on some of these too. And I don't necessarily agree with every point they have on here as a thing bringing you joy or not, but here we go. Ignore the video. I don't know what she is or what she's doing, but apparently I can pause her. Yeah, that's what I figured.
AI writing tool that works seamlessly
when they embed these things. But anyways, at the top it says, joy in quilting comes from the creative process of designing and piecing fabric, the stress-relieving mindfulness of repetitive motions, and the sense of accomplishment that comes from finishing a project. It also stems from community and connection with other quilters and the satisfaction of creating something beautiful and functional like a gift or an heirloom. So apparently this video explains it. I'll be honest, I never watched it because I just figured it's another talking head on there. There's lots of people on YouTube that are talking heads. Don't you mention us. Let me blow this up a little bit here too. Okay, fill the screen with it. So they talk about this in more detail. Creative expression and mindfulness was said, rhythmic and meditative. The repetitive motions of cutting, piecing, and stitching can induce a meditative state, quieting the mind and reducing stress by lowering cortisol levels. Yeah. Well, what do you think? Is that true?
Yeah, it can be. Yeah. I mean, it's doing something, I guess. I mean, it could be quilting. It could be somebody likes woodworking or likes doing another cooking, for instance. You get involved in the project, and then you have an end product, right, that you are working towards. So it keeps you busy and it stimulates your mind.
And not only that, but while you're concentrating on something like that, like putting a block together or a shirt together, something like that, you really are paying more attention to what you're doing with that immediate item. Your mind isn't wandering or thinking about things that you may be worrying you, like your household finances or what you have to get ready for guests coming the next week or something like that. So you're I guess they call that being in the zone kind of a thing. But the word repetitive motions of cutting. I get joy out of chain stitching and organizing all the pieces so I'm doing the same thing rapid fire after it. I always kid it's like a sweatshop. But that's in a positive way because I'm doing that. I feel like I'm accomplishing something. The overall big task doesn't seem as overwhelming to me and gets me worried about it. If I can break everything down to small little pieces that are repetitive. Now, the danger of it is the number of pieces. If you have to make 3,000 half square triangles, doesn't matter how much chain stitching you're going to be doing, you're going to be bored. And that's when you get bored, that's when your mind, I think, starts to wander a bit. But there is something, I think, in the repetitive idea. Then it's a creative outlet. Quilting offers a way to express oneself through color, fabric, design, providing a sense of purpose and allowing for both following strict patterns or free form improv. Okay, I focus on this once is providing a sense of purpose. If I have something that I'm making for a very specific reason, that brings me joy because I know that I'm moving towards an end product that has a real purpose to it. This is why I have trouble doing like trying my hand at art quilts because I don't have a very specific purpose for it. Now, I suppose your purpose could be that you just want to do something. And sometimes it alleviates stress. Like sometimes you just want to sew fabric together, your scraps. You may not have a purpose. And I have done that as well. And I call those kind of projects palette cleansers because I really don't know what I want to work on next. But I want to do something. But yeah, the sense of purpose, I like that. And then and allowing for both following strict patterns or free form improv. I like following a pattern because I can check things off as I do them. And I feel, again, a sense of accomplishment that I'm getting through something. Like the big stormy sea quilt that I've been working on forever. Yeah, it brings me joy when I've got a certain number of blocks done. But it doesn't bring me joy when I think about how much more I have to do. So it's a double-edged sword with that. What do you think about this creative outlet bit? Does it bring you joy to be creative?
Yeah, it does to a point. I tend to end up getting stuck doing repetitive things like sewing shirts, right? But
do you like doing that?
Yeah, actually, I do like doing that. I've always liked repetitive things for some reason, and a lot of people hate doing repetitive.
Yeah, I'm like that too. I like repetitive things. I like the routine.
Yeah,
it appeals to my left brain logic and the idea that I'm doing something and I know how to do it and I'm not having any problems with it.
Yeah. I do like being creative as well, but that takes more brain power for me.
Well, that's right, brain. Yeah. If I'm in the mood to be creative, that brings me joy. What doesn't bring me joy is when I'm trying to do something and it's not working out in the way that I visualize it in my mind and I get frustrated. Then that doesn't bring me joy. So, the creative part isn't always necessarily positive.
I guess what happens with me sometimes is I want to be creative, but then I get intimidated.
Yeah.
By doing that. And then if I don't end up getting a result like what you said, like a positive result, then I get really frustrated.
Yeah, I get frustrated and I actually get angry too. And that's the exact opposite of having any joy out of that. So I guess you have to, maybe it's because you set your sights too high. Yeah. And maybe I've heard lately the whole thing about being a perfectionist is not what it's cut out to be, that maybe you've got to let go of that idea. I think that's a control thing, being a perfectionist.
Yeah.
Then it says mental engagement. The process engages parts of the brain responsible for problem solving, memory, and creativity, which can help keep the mind sharp. Okay, so if we're talking about joy here.
Yeah, things are like, why do people do crossword puzzles? Like, I mean, you're not really getting anything positive. You're not creating something out of that, but you are giving your mind a workout. And that you do that if you're doing a quilt. I assume you're doing that when you're doing a quilt, even though you're following a pattern and everything else. You're working your way through putting all the pieces together to make it work, right?
Well,
and that's sort of how you do it with a shirt too. Even though I've done it lots of times before and stuff like that. I mean, I still add little bits of creation to it as well as I'm going along.
Well, I think that's what they mean, the mental engagement. It's keeping your brain going because you're problem solving,
Yeah.
or you're having to remember how you did that before, or a technique you did before. And it's also creative because, I mean, you're picking fabrics out, whether you're doing a shirt, whether you're doing a quilt, you're picking out colors, you're figuring out placement, you've had to think about the pattern you want to do, all that kind of stuff. So they say it keeps the mind sharp. And crossword puzzles and Sudoku and those kind of things, that's what they do as well, because they engage your mind. Whereas if you're watching something if you're doing something that's more passive, like watching television, you're really not thinking, because the problem solving and everything in that is already in the program you're watching. Someone's already come out with it. And you don't have an opportunity while you're watching something on TV until after the program's over, if you so desire, to think about it more deeply. Like how some movies you'll call, like they're a thinker movie. You come out of the theater and go, oh, well, that's interesting how that happened, because what do you think they were doing there, or whatever. But a lot of the times, I don't think we're really engaged on an upper level of thinking with that. So really, watching television, when they say watching television, that kind of stuff is not something that keeps your brain sharp, your mind sharp. Also, too, I think mental engagement in what we do as sewing, or as sewers, or sewists or quilters, is, I think we're always thinking, what if I did this? Like sometimes, like for example, techniques. You don't always follow the standard technique when you make something.
No, I don't. I'll alter it based on what works better for me.
Yeah, works better with your brain. So you see, it's engaging you.
Yeah, I'll change things on a pattern to work.
Yeah. So all these things we're talking about right now all falls under this mindfulness, this engaging your brain. Now they go to accomplishment and pride. Tangible results. Turning a pile of fabric scraps into a finished, beautiful, and functional object provides a strong sense of pride and accomplishment. Well, yeah, I would definitely agree with that. When I get through a quilt and it's all finished from beginning to end, I do feel like I've accomplished something major, especially if it's a really complicated kind of thing to do. And I think you probably think that way too when you've done a shirt.
When I've done a shirt, or anything actually, for that matter. I mean, I have done things in the past that aren't sewing, that when I finish it, I feel proud of what I've done.
Yeah. And I also think too, and this is part of back to the mental part, oftentimes when you're doing a project, you have learned something. You made a mistake, but you overcame it. I think that's when you get a real sense of accomplishment, is you've made a mistake and you didn't give up. You figured out how to correct the mistake, how to fix it. And in the process of doing that, you may have learned something as well that you can take on with you to the next project you do. So that's a sense of accomplishment right there. Always learning something. Again, I think if you want to keep your mind going, I've always said, every day you should learn something new, even if it's just a small little fact, because I think what happens is people don't engage their mind in learning something new every day. Like
that's back to the people that keep their embroidery machines in the box.
Well,
after they purchase it,
because they're overwhelmed and they're afraid they're going to wreck something. They got to take a chance. Well, that's not engaging your brain. Why did you spend the money? But I also think too, one of the things that's really great about the internet and Google is, if you don't know something, it takes 3 seconds, especially with the AI now. Yes, you have to take into consideration that maybe some of the information you get is not absolutely the correct information, so with a grain of salt, but that engages your brain. But you can go to it and you go, I wonder what if I can find out about this. But there's a lot of people out there, and I hear this all the time. They ask me questions. They put questions in comments that they could easily have found within seconds on Google.
I know that. I've noticed that. I think Google is underutilized by a lot of people.
Yeah.
If what the first thing I do when I run into a problem is try and Google it. before I ask somebody else for
Yeah.
an answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's learning something new right there
And
from.
it's a vast. The internet has a lot of information on there. Uh, that will give you some decent information. It gives you some bad information too. You have to
Yeah,
sort out
you have to be able to sort it
what
out.
it is, and if not, it might give you, instead of just asking somebody a question on how to do something, maybe if you did some research first and
If you
for
still don't have
solutions,
the
and you
answer
still don't have this
or enough of
answer,
an answer
or
for
you've
you.
got conflicting information,
Yeah.
you can start asking other people. Well, I saw this on the internet for my problem. What do you think? Right, and it starts dialogue with other
Yeah.
people.
That's true. And I think they come to that a little further down in here about the community aspect.
But that is one problem with technology, is that people aren't taking advantage of it
Yeah.
enough.
I mean, last night we're sitting at the supper table and I had a question about my phone. And
How come my phone's not doing this one
yeah,
thing?
doing this one thing.
So I just went online and I said, "Oh, how do you make the iPhone do this?"
And you don't even have to type it in anymore. You just say, "Hey Siri," and ask the question, and it comes up with it. Like I just activated Siri on my iPad here in the corner. Or if you've got a smart device, like an Amazon or Alexa or whatever. And I think we tend to forget that we can ask these machines questions. That's what they're there for. Maybe some people are afraid to ask them questions, but it's things like in quilting, bringing it back to sewing. I've heard so many people say, oh, they hate binding because they don't know how to do it right. They never get it right. And I look at them and go, well, there are hundreds, literally hundreds of videos on YouTube showing you how to bind a quilt.
It's just like a lot of people say, do a tutorial on doing this, or do a tutorial on doing that. Well, there's lots of other videos online that do the same thing.
Now, mind you, if we do a tutorial, we would show it from the way we do it. So you do get different perspectives when you do a search for something like this on, say, YouTube. But there has never been a time in history like now where information truly is at our fingertips. We do not have to leave the confines of our house. We just need a computer device, a smart device. I mean, remember back in my age group, our age group, if you needed to do research, you had to physically go to a library and start finding the books. And that was a challenge because, remember in elementary school, they taught us how to use the card catalog in the Dewey Decimal System and this kind of stuff. And
so actually, it also actually brings me joy when I find the solution to a problem by just doing research on the internet.
Yeah. So that's engaging your mind too. So, I mean, I don't know why people are afraid to use Google or using the internet in general for searching for things. Okay, so then they talk here under accomplishment pride, dopamine release. Completing creative tasks triggers the release of feel-good chemicals like dopamine, boosting motivation and satisfaction. So basically there is a biochemical benefit.
Yeah, like you look at it and you say, I love what I've done. And then what else is nice is if you can show other people.
Well, yeah. And guess what? In the quilting community, especially, that's one of the principal things we do. We're always showing what we've made off to other people because we're proud of it and we should be showing it to other people. And by that simple act of showing things, not only are you feeling good about what you've done, people say nice things, usually, maybe nasty things behind your back, but to your face, they're saying nice things. So take it for what it's worth with that. But it also inspires because I always see things that other people, when they're sharing their quilts with me, when I put them up on the Idiot Quilter, the show and share slideshow is always popular, as I said earlier, at the retreat, because people get inspired by what other people have done. Now couple that with using Google. You see something, a pattern, but you don't know the name of the pattern. Now with Google, you can take a screenshot of what you've seen, plug it into Google, it'll probably find it for you. Same with fabric. People are always asking, because I always forget to tell them, well, who manufactures that fabric? What's the name of the designer? I don't know. Especially if it's a piece of fabric I've been having out of my stash that's been here for a couple of years. I don't remember if the salvage is gone off it. But it's easy. You take a picture of it with your camera, with your phone, and you put it through Google search. And it comes up. I have found fabric that way all the time. Comes up with the name of it, and away you go. Why wait to get the information from somebody else? You've got it at your fingertips.
Yeah, so you get a completed project, even when I do a shirt and that. And actually, another thing that gives me satisfaction is if somebody sees your shirt in public and they say, oh, I really like that shirt. Where did you get it? Right?
Yeah,
and
he just beams.
Yeah.
Because I would say, Walter made it. And they go, oh, did you made that? No. And he goes, yes. They go, no. And he goes, yes. And then the next thing they say is,
do you have a store?
Do you have a store?
No.
No. You don't?
No, you cannot buy that.
No, you can't buy it.
And I'm not making you one.
And I often say, and you couldn't afford him anyways. And they always look at you questioningly about it. But it makes you feel really good. And I like wearing them because people will come up to me and they'll also say, oh, I really love your shirt. I mean, I never say I made it because with the exception of only one shirt, I haven't made any before. But that makes me feel good too because, I look good in it. And also because I know the source of where it came from.
So when you're making a quilt, you're going through a big process, whether you're making a quilt or shirt or something like that. And you're going through a big process to get a completed project. And you get your completed project and you're happy with what you've made.
Yeah.
Right? Provided you didn't make any mistakes that you
you just don't point mistakes out.
And you're happy with what you've made and other people get to see it and admire it as well.
Yeah.
And so
I think
gives you a sense of accomplishment.
I think that's also why people enter their quilts into quilt shows. They want people to see it, and when they get the ribbon, they're very, very happy because they're getting acknowledgement from their peers in the quilting community saying, you did good. You did good. And we can all pretend that, oh, we don't care about any of that. Yes, we do. We want praise. And in the next thing they say, skill development, the journey of learning new techniques and improving skills builds confidence and a feeling of capability. And we like that kind of thing too. And I think that's also why people enter quilt shows, because usually those are quilts that took a lot of thought, a lot of time, a lot of skill to make. And if you win a prize at a quilt show, your skill level is being acknowledged. And that's got to make you feel joy from all of that. So then they talk about connection and purpose, community. Quilting connects you to a rich tradition and a community of like-minded people through classes, guilds, or online groups. It's social. People who are on their own and alone are not necessarily fully happy people. We are social creatures by the nature of our being. We live in colonies. We call them cities, streets, that kind of thing. Think about the animal kingdom. There's very few animals that are always by themselves. Now, some, they are solo hunters in that, but oftentimes they're out there looking for a mate anyways, and to, all right, you can say to keep the herd up and that kind of thing. But most animals tend to be very social with their own kind as well. Human beings, definitely. So you'll hear somebody say, I'd rather be with myself. I don't like people. Well, what you're really saying is the people that I know I don't like, so I want to stay away from them. But nobody is happy spending 24/7 like a hermit. Think about COVID. What were people going through? Everybody was going stir crazy. Why were we going stir crazy? Because we weren't able to socialize in a manner that we were used to. So quilting and sewing, retreats, classes, online, give us that sense of community. And I think, again, here's where I bring it back to technology. Since the invention of Zoom and the wide use of Zoom and other platforms like it, that's opened up a whole new world of community and connection, which we learned out of necessity to use when we felt isolated during COVID all that time. So, that's one of the good things that came out of COVID. We learned how to use technology in a way to enhance our connectiveness with other people.
And what is nice about Zoom is that you get to meet people from all over the world.
Yeah, which just opens up all kinds of things for your creativity because, what's going on in another part of the world when it comes to quilting. There's different styles of quilting around the world. There's different fabrics. There's different color schemes. There's different techniques. Any of that wasn't available to us 50 years ago. But today, it's right there. So if you're not, and I know there's some people that don't want to come to my virtual retreat only because they're nervous about using the technology. Well, what better way to cut your teeth on something like that? Just plunge in. You're not going to destroy the world or your life. And there will always be, within this connectiveness, within these communities, there's always people there willing to help you.
I mean, it's great to be able to socialize. Some people socialize with quilt guilds or something that are local to their community, and they have something in common because they live in the same community. But with with being able to do it on Zoom, you have an opportunity to talk to people from all over the place. And yeah, the vast majority of people that you have on your channel are Canadian or American, right?
But we have English, England,
have a few
UK,
people from
Australia,
from Europe or the UK or
some
Australia.
from Germany, some from Norway.
And it is an opportunity to talk to people that you would not normally talk to.
Yeah. And you may not be just talking about quilting either because, one thing leads into another. I mean, on the Wednesdays, sew days that we talk about everything. And again, I go back to that thing about engaging your mind and keeping your mind sharp. You learn things from other people. You don't learn much from being isolated and being alone. You need other people that you can feed into and learn from, as long as you keep your mind open to what those things are.
You get to know new products that are available.
Yes. Oh, yes. Talk about the enabling. Yep, I've been enabled many times because I didn't know that existed. I was enabled earlier this week by a product, and I immediately emailed my local quilt store asking if they were going to get them in, and they are. And my name's on the list to get one. So you're probably saying, well, what is that? Well, Gudrun from GE Designs is releasing in December a wool mat that has a silicone base to it. And if you've ever used a wool mat, pressing mat, you have to have something underneath it. You don't just put it on top of your work surface because it will damage it because it doesn't prevent the heat from going through and steam especially. So she has developed one that sits in a silicone thing. And I went, oh, I think this will be brilliant. Also, the mat won't slide around either if it's on a silicone base as well. So I immediately phoned them up and my name is on the list to get one of those when they come in. But anyways, that's something I wouldn't have known if I didn't have the connection to my quilting community through my sew days. And also, I've made friends. And though
we've met a few of the friends personally too.
But there are many that we have never met beyond Zoom. We've never, traveled to or had them come and meet us, whatever. It's very nice when that does happen. Like you're at a quilt show or something and somebody recognizes us and they come over and speak. That brings me joy when people do that. And I'll tell you why it brings me joy. One, it means that what we're doing here right now, there are those who appreciate this. Because if there wasn't, why would we do it? And two, makes us feel like celebrities when they come up. I mean, you don't want it to all go to your head, but, it is a nice feeling. Brings you joy. Gift giving. Creating a quilt for a loved one is deeply thoughtful and personal gift, allowing you to stitch love and comfort into every inch. Yeah, I love to give gifts. I always have. I love to make things and give them away, give them to people. Not necessarily do they always want them, but I mean, as long as they don't tell me that to my face. Well, some have. My sister, but that's a story for another day.
But she did eventually ask you for a
Yes,
quilt,
she did.
so.
And when she did ask me for me to make her a quilt, I mean, I'd offered for so many times, and no, I have no place to store it. Wrong answer. When she did come to me and ask for one specific, I was overjoyed with it. Because it makes you feel appreciated. It also makes you feel that you're doing something that someone wants. That it's not, it's not a gift you forced on somebody, with the chance that it could be regifted. And that's why we use the expression, are they quilt worthy? Because let's face it, there are some people out there that we would never make a quilt for. When I was a paper crafter and I made cards take a while to make. And you put a lot of effort into it and a lot of creativity and thought and product and all that kind of stuff. And you know what people do with cards, right? If a standard store-bought card, if anybody sends those anymore, you get it, you put it on display for about a week, and then you clean it up and throw it in the garbage.
Yeah, well, yeah, one thing that doesn't maybe bring you joy is when you found out that the quilt that you've given somebody is not appreciated.
Yeah. And that's why we need to be a bit selective about who's quilt worthy or not. But, I've heard many tales of where people have given somebody a quilt and then they've been over to their place and it's the dog's blanket. And, but I also have heard people say, well, once you give something away, it's not yours anymore. You've basically given permission for that person who now owns it to do whatever they want to do it because it's their possession. So that's why you have to think about what you're giving. But generally speaking, I think gift giving, or even if you're donating to charities and things like that too, you don't know where your quilt's going to go. I love making quilts for Quilts of Valor. I don't know who's going to get it or when they're going to get it, but I do know one thing. I know that whoever gets it appreciates it.
And also the Quilts of Valor organization appreciates the donations. So.
Yes, and they make sure that they tell you that they do. Which there are some charities out there, and I've been over this before, so I'm not going into it again, that don't give you any kind of acknowledgement at all. Now, there are those out there who say, well, you shouldn't expect to get any acknowledgement when it's a charity. You're giving it out of the goodness of your heart. Yes, you are, but you should expect a thank you. I don't care what anybody says. I expect at least a thank you. And I expect a sincere thank you. You don't have to have champagne and balloons going off and a confetti cannon for all of this. But giving a sincere thank you, and it's always nice if it's done also in writing. Email is fine. It doesn't have to be long. Just thank you so much for your donation. I know the recipient of it will appreciate it. Thanks again. Yours truly. Whatever. Because that goes a long way, and that brings you joy. But when they just get it and run, well, it makes you kind of question, okay, did they not like it? Was it not appropriate? Are they paying me lip service here? I'm not doing this again. Yeah, I have a few charities I won't give anything to because of their reaction to what I gave them. A thank you goes a long way. Brings joy. Thank you brings joy. Okay.
And that's part of why you're quilting too. It's not just you like what you've produced, right? And it brings you happiness that you've accomplished this. But it also brings you happiness if you've given it to somebody and it's appreciated.
Spread the joy. Because after I'm done a quilt, it goes in a bag and I forget I even made it. And I've got bags of like elaborate storage bags full of quilts. So many that I don't remember what's in there unless I open them up. And, well, you've heard me say before, I'm not sure what to do with them.
Plus, you're making something unique. right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can buy a pattern and make it.
And when you
But
say you mean a quilters
a quilter, like I mean, or I'm saying that even with
or the shirt.
shirts. I mean, I'm making something unique. It's something I can't buy in a
It's one of
store,
a kind.
right? No, I mean, the shirt pattern is the same, but the ultimate, uh, what do you call it? The product is not something I can buy in a store.
No, and the craftsmanship in it is unique to you.
Yeah. So,
So
like, I mean, and that's the same even for a quilt. I mean, you could even mimic the quilt to look the same as the picture on the outside of the pattern, but it's still your quilt,
yeah,
right? And it is also something that you're not going to easily be able to purchase somewhere.
no. So, it's one of a kind of thing. And then they talk up here, they say heirloom creations. Quilts have a timeless quality that can become cherished heirlooms, preserving memories and stories for future generations. And so they're talking about this under connection. Yeah, connecting from one generation to the next generation. And young people do not have, most of them, some do, but most of them really don't have an appreciation for something that is handmade by a grandparent or by an uncle or aunt or whatever. Not until they get older. Then they suddenly realize this is a piece of their family history and they have it. I mean, the quilt I got from my grandmother that she made me, I mean, I didn't fully appreciate it. I wasn't a quilter at the time. I wasn't that fond of the colors that were in it because they weren't my color wheel at the time. I mean, I understood that my grandmother put a lot of work into it and everything like that, but I truly didn't appreciate it until I got older and I got into quilting. And now my grandmother's gone, but I still have a piece of her. I have something she touched, something that when I look at the stitches in that quilt, because it was hand done, I know those were done by her. They weren't done by mass manufactured or anything like that. So yeah, I think with age, I mean, you may appreciate these things a little bit more. But it is a connection. And I know lots of people out there, when a new baby comes into the family, a new grandchild or whatever, first thing on their mind is gotta make them a quilt. And there's nothing wrong with that. Start them young for the appreciation. Okay, so they go down to other sources of joy. The hunt for fabric. Many quilters find joy in the sensory experience of visiting stores to find the perfect fabrics. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. One of my favorite things to do is to go fabric shopping. Now, I don't do it as much as I did when I first got into quilting because, we get to the point where we have a super saturated stash and we don't know what to do with it. So, but I still get the joy of going into a quilt store and looking around. We were in one yesterday, our local one. And even though I was there for a specific purpose, I still looked around because you never know what you might find. So I like doing that. Do you like doing that?
Yeah, I do too
Yeah.
much, and I don't go through my fabric fast enough. So now I keep getting more, so I have to cut back. So
Yeah. So, I mean, I love going on a road trip to a quilt store I've never been to before. It actually excites me. That brings me joy. It brings me joy too because it's a social outing as well. Like when you're retired, you tend to stay and you get older. You tend not to go out as much. You become a bit of a homebody. And I really like going out and even if it's just to look at what's there. There's, mind you, I usually buy something. But yeah, it's an outing. It's a different environment. We're doing it together. So it's fun, that kind of stuff. Quilt shows, going to local guild quilt shows, things like that. We're going to one in a couple of weeks' time. It's just interesting again for all the reasons we've already talked about with, looking at quilts, being inspired by quilts, all that kind of stuff. The final touch. For some, the act of binding the quilt, which brings the whole project together, is a particularly blissful and satisfying part of the process. Actually, I kind of like binding a quilt. And I don't know why, because I don't like preparing for it. In fact, I sometimes look at it and go, oh, I got to bind this big sucker, which means I got to make binding. And so I got cut strips of fabric, and I got to fold them in half, and I got to sew them together and get it all ready. But when I'm in the process of doing the binding, with each stitch, I'm a little closer to the final product. Now, sometimes if I didn't quite catch the edge of the binding and I didn't realize that, and then I'm doing my final inspection and I find this gaping hole, that doesn't bring me joy. That makes me a little anguished. But, and in fact, I'll let you know a little secret. That Quilt of Valor one, I did that. My fold in my binding, I didn't notice it, was not even, and I went off the edge, and I had a spot about this big, but I already got the binding sewn on all the way around both sides. And I looked at it and went,
Did you fix it?
I did. I had to fix it. There was no way around it. I couldn't. And so I ripped out the binding, about a foot or so of the binding, so that I could repress the binding and get it in there. And yeah, I did. It was a bit of a bugger to do. And believe me, if this had been the first part of when I was quilting, I would never have been able to have fixed that. But now I can. I have more experience. And you want to know something? Although it was a bitch that I had to do that, and I felt stupid because I know better, I should have double checked. I didn't. So it was my bad. But when I fixed it, I felt joy, because nobody will ever know unless I tell them that I made that mistake. I was able to fix it, so it's no longer a mistake. And it wasn't like a makeshift fix. It's real. Like it is the way it should be. So that made me happy when I did that. So that's kind of weird. I wasn't happy when I found the hole. I was happy when I got it fixed. Joy over perfection. Releasing the pressure to be perfect and focusing on the love and fun of the process is key to enjoying quilting. I do tend to be a perfectionist. So do you.
Mm-hmm.
And it annoys me when something isn't perfect. And what I'm thinking of is points on things. We all have problems with the points. Now, I'm pretty good at getting my points lined up, but every now and then it'll be out by 1/16 of an inch. And I know that bothers me. I have to try and fix it, but sometimes I can't fix that for a variety of reasons. I just have to live with the fact that that one's out by 1/16 of an inch, and only a quilter who studied it would ever see it. The general public looking at a quilt, even quilters, because there's so much else going on in the quilt, are never going to know it. It's just, I know it. There. Sometimes you have to just say, okay, I can live with that and move on. No sense dwelling on it. What about you?
Yeah, well, I've made a few mistakes, and there's sometimes, it's at a point where I can't reverse it. So I do the best what I can do to fix it up so that it's acceptable.
But the problem is, we know when we look at it every time, we know that mistake or whatever is there, and it bugs us. But you know, if you're too much of a perfectionist,
and it's annoying because sometimes you should know better.
Yeah, that's part of it.
You should know better, and
you feel like an idiot.
And then you make that mistake, and it's like, oh, I should have done that instead.
And quilters, we're our own worst critics. They always say there isn't any quilt police. Yeah, there are quilt police. They're from inside of ourselves. And as long as we don't point these things out to other people, they're not going to know. So, the other thing too is, if they do spot it and make a negative comment about it, they're not your friend. They are not worthy of your friendship. So I guess we could spend a lot of time. Are we ever perfect? Are we ever to the point of perfection? I mean, these people, when I first started quilting, getting into this and why I created this channel, the Idiot Quilter, was because I was being intimidated by all the videos I was watching on YouTube. Everybody was showing these beautiful quilts. They would sew along and everything and made it look so easy and so like perfect. They never talked about their mistakes. And but I was making mistakes. And I was starting to think, I'll never be able to do this. And I think a lot of first-time quilters that get into it get discouraged from going on in quilting or in sewing.
Yeah, like, I mean, sewing garments is a little different than quilting, but I mean, you still are working towards an end product. And again, you're right. Even on the sewing shirts and that, you don't really see videos about people making mistakes on them and how to fix them.
And so you figure that you are not going to be able to ever do this.
Yeah.
And
it can be frustrating. You end up with a product that isn't exactly what you wanted. And then you might get discouraged. But I think that becomes part of the learning process.
Yeah. And so I decided when I started Idiot Quilter and called it Idiot Quilter was to show the stupid mistakes I made. But not just show the mistakes, but show what I did to correct the mistake. And the idea in my mind was, it's not hopeless. There are always things you can do to rectify the problem. And so, yeah, I make stupid mistakes all the time. And I point them out. Because what do you learn? You don't learn anything. If everything's always perfect, you don't, what are you learning?
So you have joy in fixing your problems.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I have joy from fixing a problem because it's a challenge too. I have to think about some problems are easy to fix. Some problems you have to really think about what you're going to do. Like, can I put a creative applique over top of that hole? Yeah, so you can see white thread where you shouldn't see white thread. I have fabric markers. Yeah. Okay. I'm just listing a few little tricks and things that I have done in the past that if I don't point it out to you, you would know there was a mistake. So, yeah. So I guess we have to get over ourselves. Now, I did find another article which basically repeats a lot of this stuff, but I think it's a good review of what we just talked about before we finish up here. They call it the 10 Kinds of Quilting Joy, and I have put a link to both of these articles in the show notes too, so you can go and check them out for yourself. This one says the accomplishment, says the ability to see undeniable progress after as little as 5 minutes. So I guess in quilting, when you do a small block or part of a block and you get that done and you've got it pressed and you know your 1/4 inches straight in that brings you joy because you can say, I can do this. Multitasking. Okay, this is one they didn't talk about. Quilting while talking, listening, and watching, etc. That brings you joy. Yeah. I like to listen to the news, podcasts, things like that on YouTube. And I like talking with the other people when I do a sew day and things like that.
Yeah, and sometimes you're just listening and sewing when you're on a sew
day. It's even when it's done virtually, you don't feel isolated and alone.
Actually, the Zoom sew days, the ones that I've been to, the ones that you have and stuff like that, it's nice to be able to talk to other people.
Yeah.
Even if it's not about sewing. It's
and oftentimes it's not.
You've got somebody else to talk to while you're sewing.
Yeah. It gives you you don't feel lonely.
And the other thing is a lot of times, I mean, Steve and I both sew, but I mean, a lot of times in a household, you might be the only one sewing.
Yeah.
And nobody else in the household. So they don't really know what you do. And they know that you make something like a quilt or something like that, but they don't really know what your process is to do that.
And some people live in areas that are very isolated and they don't know anybody in their community that's a quilter.
Or you live in a rural area or something.
And so you're far away from other people.
Like,
as
I
well.
mean, we have one lady that comes in from France, and
Hmm.
there aren't very many quilters in France, but it's
That she
kind of
knows of.
nice that that she knows are available in France, and she likes the fact that she can talk to a community of quilters that are across the ocean.
Yeah.
So
And when she first came into our group, she was a beginner quilter. You should see her now. Holy crap. The stuff she makes is beautiful. So, yeah. And she attributes a lot of it to the fact that she got ideas and inspiration and support from within her own sewing group, too. Flow. What's the opposite of decision fatigue? Quilting is so slow that you get in a groove working and not need to pause and decide for hours and even days. I don't know about this. What are they saying? What is the opposite of decision fatigue? Quilting is so slow that you can
I
get
think
in
what
a
they're trying
groove.
to talk about repetitive things that you're doing
I
in
guess.
quilting, and that you can just sort of go ahead and do it, and it's occupying your time and keeping you busy.
But there are people who do spend hours trying to decide. You see people come in when we've been in the quilt stores before, and we've seen someone come in and they have no idea what they want for fabric. They want to make a particular pattern, they have it in their hand. They go to the staff and they go, I don't know what colors to use, which is a very difficult question for someone working in a quilt store to answer because we all have our own tastes with it. I often say to people, you go with your gut. Look at all the fabric on the shelves. What do you gravitate for? Grab that. That's your start. That's your focal fabric. Now, now, find other fabrics you like with it. It doesn't need to be a week-long decision-making process. You can do it. Just have faith in yourself. But some people also dwell over the pattern they want to do. Um, Sometimes we overthink
Yeah.
things, so that disrupts flow. And also, quilting is not a race. Any kind of creative process is not a race, and I think people forget this. And we put ourselves, something that doesn't bring me joy is working to a deadline. I had to do that through most of my working career
Yeah.
and my schooling career. Now I'm retired. The only deadlines I have are those that I impose upon myself. And sometimes I impose deadlines that give me some stress. Like people are always talking about, oh, I got to get this done before Christmas because I want to give it as a gift. Christmas is next week for them. Got to do a little planning because you can't rush through with sewing, because that's when you'll make mistakes and you're just going to get frustrated and angry with yourself. So, I guess here, if they're talking about flow, as in pacing yourself, that might be better. Watch anything on TV and know that the reminder to look up is inherently valuable for keeping your neck healthy. Okay, I
don't really
don't
think
know.
that's anything.
I think
I mean, what's that part of joy? I don't know. Like,
I
you
don't know
mean,
that you don't have a neck ache pain. I guess
I mean,
I can't watch TV and quilt.
yeah, actually, I wouldn't. I'm not much into, um, other than having like a Zoom on that you're in a Zoom day
Mm-hmm.
or in a quilt retreat. I don't really like watching TV and doing
No.
art or whatever.
Now, the other thing, though, that I've thought of lately is I know a lot of people like to do handwork while they watch TV.
Yeah, that
And I
maybe.
often think, okay, I'm laying on a couch staring at this boob tube for hours on end in the evening, and I don't feel like I've been very productive when I've done that. But I don't know. I've thought about getting out my English paper piecing, the hexies that I started, a long time ago, and seeing if I could do that at the same time. But my problem is, like, I have to look at my stitches or there will be blood.
Yeah, and you need a certain amount of light.
Yeah, and a certain sitting position and the whole bit. So that's why I haven't done it. They say quilters, you get to meet other quilters, including on Instagram. Well, that's all the things we've already talked about there. Now, here's one, though, we didn't think that didn't come up in the other article. Repurposing. Sustainable sewing like that addressed in Self Bulk Expos, whatever that is both ethically inspiring and makes quilting more financially accessible than other art forms. Um, Yeah, there are people who like to go to thrift stores and buy old quilts that are in there and repurpose them, like re-sew them, make them into a quilted jacket, or cut them up, make them into a new quilt, or they buy clothes. I know that there's a lady right now on my sew day who has a whole bunch of old ties that she is making into a quilt. She's pulling them apart and stabilizing them and all that kind of stuff. I have not tried that myself, but I think if you're very conscientious about the environment and stuff like that, and it is a thing, sustainable quilting and sewing, it's something to try. You know what turns me off about that is I don't want to buy somebody's used clothing or whatever. I mean, I know that they've been washed and I would wash them again, of course, but there's something about that
Plus, actually, for me, I don't like the patterns of pre-made clothing.
yeah,
One of the reasons I make shirts is that I can get fabric that you can't buy shirts ready made out of that. The ready made fabric is all boring,
yeah.
and so I haven't really looked at what's available for. I mean, I suppose you could get a shirt and alter it or something like that.
But you see, we've never done this. We
No,
have never really gone into a thrift store and purposely gone in and looked through to see what's
yeah,
available
yeah,
there for this kind of stuff. That might be like a challenge thing.
yeah, that could be,
Like,
yeah,
I could maybe make a quilt out of some found things. And you know how I was talking about doing art quilts?
yeah.
Well, and the thing is, usually you can get that stuff reasonably, well, cheaper than buying like brand new yardage and that kind of thing. I don't know. Now I'm thinking this might be a thought, something to try just to see, do a small little piece just to see what it would be like. I don't know. Next one is self-care. When I teach a quilting class, I so frequently see folks who have carved out a tiny bit of time to refill their own cups. This in turn makes them kinder, gentler, more patient people in other areas of life. Well, oftentimes I hear this from the ladies, especially. I never have any time for myself because I'm always doing something for someone else. I've got my children to look after, my grandchildren to look after. I have a husband to look after. I have animals to feed. I have a house to maintain. I have groceries to buy. I have cooking to do. And yeah, okay, there's always something you could be doing, you know, because that's the nature of life. So if you have a hobby like quilting or sewing something and saying, okay, and I know a lot of the ladies who come to my sew days on Wednesday, that's what they do. This is their day, their sew day. They tell relatives and friends, I am busy on this day. This is my day when I sew and I get together with my sewing friends. And they look forward to doing that. Um, So, and I think people are that way when it comes to retreats too. It gives them a chance to be in a different environment, or if it's a virtual retreat, they make sure everybody in their household knows, no, I'm on this. This is what I'm doing. You go fend for yourselves for a while. So, yeah, self care, I think, is important. Independence, the ability to make a beautiful functional object yourself without needing to buy a finished version in a store. Hadn't thought of it that way, but that's true. There are things that I make because, well,
Placemats,
napkins.
napkins.
Why I have a serger? Because I wanted a serger so I could make napkins because we use cloth napkins, and I didn't see any that I really liked, and everything that I did see that I might like was extremely expensive for cloth napkins. So I suppose I was spending $1,200 on a serger. Um, but whatever.
But then it does, like, I mean, like with the shirts, I spent we have expensive sewing machines and stuff like that, and I mean, material is not that cheap or whatever, but I have an end product that's unique.
yeah.
That, I mean, if we went to, you could go, the way you got to look at some of the stuff that you're making is that the stuff that you buy in a cheap store is cheap,
Mhm.
right? Like, you mean, it's cheap quality. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily good quality. And if you want something special, you go to a high-end store and you have to pay a lot of money at the high-end store. So even though it costs you money to make your own products or whatever, first of all, they're unique to you, and you have pride that you've made it.
Yeah, and I think that also leads into the gift giving as well, because I can create something that is individualized. It's for the person's taste, like the stuff I'm doing right now for my hairdresser. She told me a color scheme, and it was outside of my comfort zone in color schemes, but it will be unique for her. I'm making something unique for her. So, and it is a form of self-expression because I made the choices keeping her ideas in mind. So, yeah. And that's what they're saying here with self-expression, making endless creative decisions that are entirely yours to make and no one else's, plus the therapeutic benefits of creating and the insights gleaned by observing one's creative choices. Yeah, this is where you learn too, the learning process. And then they talk about skill. Feeling talented and capable is amazing. And yes, I think anybody who's been quilting for a while or sewing for a while, you stand back and you go, look what I can do. And I can do this well and comfortably, and it doesn't give me any grief. I have learned how to do this, and I have perfected my art as well with it. So yeah, I think that makes you really feel proud of yourself that you were able to do this. When I first got into quilting, I remember saying to a lady, because I saw this fabric that I liked, and there was a kit, and I just said to her, I says, I've really never ever made a quilt before. Will I be able to follow the instructions? She goes, oh yeah, sure you will. She wanted to make the sale. And I did. And it worked. And that's what got me really into all of this. So, and you challenged yourself too, because why suddenly did you want to make shirts?
Well, actually, I always wanted to make a shirt. It's just I found it intimidating to make a shirt, and I didn't know where to start. And it wasn't until I took that class that I began to understand how to make it, and now I understand more stuff. So
yeah. So I guess the bottom line there is don't be intimidated by that which you don't know. If you really want to do something, figure out how you can learn how to do it. Whether you go on some online to something or you go to an in-person class somewhere, go. And I think sometimes people think, oh, well, other people there will already know what they're doing. No, they're taking the class too. Why would they be taking the class if they already know how to do it?
I found also what some people are intimidated by is other people that may say, oh, I've sewn for years and all this other stuff. And the perception is that the person that's sewn for years knows what they're doing. But I found also in the classes that I took that the person that said they've sewn for years didn't really know what they were doing.
Yeah.
and they aren't necessarily good sewers. They've just sewn for years.
Yeah. Well, I think too that if you get into a situation in a class where somebody like that comes in and goes, oh, I know how to do all of this stuff, you have to say to yourself, we're all at different levels. And if that person is giving you grief because you're not at the level that they are at, you ignore them. Or you tell them to F off. No.
I mean, I've been in a class where there have been brilliant sewers in the class, right? Like really brilliant sewers. And what's nice about it, if you were in a class with a brilliant sewer, they're always welcome. They're always, those sewers are always there that will help you out and give you advice or whatever. Mm-hmm. And if you happen to get into a class where there's one that thinks she's a brilliant sewer and you find out she's not, you can ignore her.
Yeah. And I was going to say too, you should never be intimidated to the point where you won't ask a question of somebody else that
actually look at somebody that's got a lot of experience as somebody that's a resource.
A resource, yeah. Feed in on it like that. And plus you want to know sometimes those people are they're very willing to help you if you ask, because they're flattered that you have come to them for help.
Not only that, every sewer had to start somewhere.
That's right.
And the people that are very good at sewing or know a lot of stuff are more than willing to help those try and get over the hump of the learning process. Yeah. They understand what the learning process is.
And, if you ask but you don't like the answer, well, take from it what you want to take from it and discard the rest. No one says you have to do it exactly like they tell you, but it'll probably put you on the road to something that'll be successful for you, given
Yeah.
your style. So anyways, that's why I think why something like quilting and sewing brings people a lot of joy. But if we extend this just a little further than that, anything that's a hobby that does something you like to do, then that's going to bring you joy. And the people who die the earliest after retirement are usually people who do not have any joy in their life. They don't have something that brings them joy. I know that firsthand with both of my parents. They did not have any hobbies or anything like that.
Or not really any hobbies or any interests.
Any interests
Beyond
their work or their...
I mean, it doesn't have to be a hobby. It could be just an interest of some sort. You know, you want to join a group and play cards or something like that. I mean, it's socializing. It's doing something that you enjoy doing. It's all that, and you need to do more than just sit on a couch and watch TV all day long.
Yeah, because that is the first thing that happens. The people who retire and have only the television set to keep them entertained don't last that many years after retirement. So as I always say to people, if you're working your job and you live for only your job, what are you going to do when you stop doing that job? You need to cultivate other interests while you're working as well. Don't let your job be your be all and end all. But that's probably a whole discussion for another day.
We're talking from a retirement point of view, but I mean, there's lots of people that sew that are also still working.
Yes.
I mean, it's good to have a hobby while you're working to keep your mind off of what you do during the, especially if you have a stressful job.
Yeah.
Sewing is a good stressful release.
I don't think anything in here came up and said about that, or maybe they did indirectly. That, stress release. That it's,
Because I know I did a hobby. I'm not necessarily sewing, but I've done hobbies before while I was working. And that was at the time I had to have, my mom was in a nursing home and other things were happening in my life that were stressful. That the hobby was a good way for me to escape.
Yeah. So I guess what we're saying is less stress, more joy. And if you have more joy, you will have less stress. So anyways, I hope that gave you some food for thought here. A lot of this stuff you probably have already realized if you're somebody who's been a long time quilter or sewist out there, or any kind of hobby, as we said before. So yeah, what are we talking about next week? Never know. Open to suggestions though. Put them in the comments below. We'll always take suggestions with that. Okay, any final thoughts of wisdom from you?
No, I don't know. I think we pretty much covered everything.
We covered it. Yes. The two wise guys. All we need is a balcony and a bunch of Muppets below us. And some of you will get that reference. Okay, have a great what's left of the week, everybody. And we'll see you again soon. Bye for now. Say goodbye, Walter.
Goodbye.